Springtime is here, and you know what that means. Chocolate eggs, dysfunctional family gatherings, and of course, Jesus Christ Superstar. Oh yes, Jesus Christ Superstar has been part of my family tradition to watch every Easter since probably forever. So, for this video, welcome to the family. Because today we're going to escape from the troubles of your day and travel back to 1973 to see how they nailed Jesus. Musically, of course. Superstar. Now I know what you might be thinking. Kyrie, is this a preachy religious movie? And I would say no. At least to the preachy part. While it is based off a story that's in the Bible, the characters in this movie are much more fleshed out. Gone is the serene-faced perfect Jesus and the evil mustache-twirling Judas. Because, yawn, boring. We're covering the 1973 version because it's the version I like best, and it feels more raw than some of the other productions of Jesus Christ Superstar. I mean, this is a movie that you can practically smell through the screen. Look at this man. That is one sweaty man. He's giving us everything. This movie and Jesus Christ Superstar in general give us complex characters with their own flaws, doubts, and motivations that make them more interesting. And that's the kind of drama that we can discuss and enjoy. Well, maybe not everybody enjoys it. That's the thing about Jesus Christ Superstar. There are going to be people on all sides that take issue with it for one reason or another. It's too religious, it's too sacrilegious. So for this case at least, because people are going to get mad either way, we can feel free to enjoy this for what it is. A rock opera with interesting characters and really catchy songs. Also, I guess in case you were saving this for like a hot beach read or something, spoilers for the Bible. If you never made it this far in the Bible, or you didn't get caught up to this season of the Bible, let me recap what's going on. Jesus has a group of fanatics that are worshiping him and who believe that he is the Son of God who can do miracles. And some of them believe that he is going to go to war for them and kill and fight for them. Judas is concerned that Jesus is losing his way and seriously contemplates how can he save Jesus from himself and from being consumed by all this fame and glory. So after some hard thoughts, Judas does eventually tell the priests where they can find Jesus without any of the crowd around so they can arrest him and sentence him. Pilate does end up sentencing him to death by crucifixion. And that's exactly what happens. And that's what happened on this season of the Bible. This isn't a starchy, all-knowing, stoic Jesus from some portrayals. This is a Jesus who's wrestling with his destiny, questioning his path and his purpose. Songs like Everything's Alright and What's the Buzz project an outward calm, but really, he's struggling
Jesus
internally
smash.
with doubt and stress. This struggle is especially fascinating in the song Gethsemane. But first, can we just appreciate Ted Neely belting out this high note like... Thank you. I am obsessed with this song. It's not just a catchy tune, although it is really catchy and builds so strong and not just that. It's also a window into Jesus' humanity and his fear of what's to come.
And now for something completely different.
And then we've got the priests. These guys are frequently and easily portrayed as one-dimensional villains, but they get a layer of complexity in Jesus Christ Superstar. The song Then We Are Decided wasn't included in the original studio cast. It was something that was written specifically for this movie. It is basically a conversation and strategy meeting between Annas and Caiaphas as they kind of figure out what the heck are they going to do about this Jesus dude and what kind of extreme measures they might have to in order to save themselves. They're not evil for the sake of being evil. They're desperate. They're clinging on to their authority. Sure, they see Jesus as a threat to their power and their way of life, but they're also terrified of what might happen if the Roman Empire hears about this new king and decides to crush them for it. And the thing that's decided in this song is the fate of Jesus. They decide that he needs to die, otherwise this crowd is going to get too crazy, and the only way to do that is to convince the rest of the council that he's dangerous.
Frighten them or they won't see.
Which is a perfect lead up to this Jesus must die.
The stakes we are gambling are frighteningly high. We must crush him completely.
Are they still antagonists and the bad guys of the movie? Yes. Yes, they are. But there is at least some internal logic to their hatred of Jesus. They don't just hate him because he's a popular guy. Speaking of villains, let's talk about Pilate for a second, because Jesus isn't the only one who's facing a raw deal here. Pilate, the Roman governor, is also traditionally portrayed as a cruel, evil guy. But the Pilate of this rock opera has a little bit more going on. The first real introduction that we get to this character, aside from a goofy cameo in the beginning of the movie, is the song Pilate's Dream. This haunting melody is essentially a vision of the future, where he meets Jesus and this guy is innocent, but the crowd hates him and wants his blood, and then he does eventually die. And then millions of people adore this dead guy and blame Pilate for it. I'm a big fan of this song and how much understated emotion is packed into it. Pilate is caught between justice and what's actually right. He's caught between following orders and his conscience. We actually see Pilate take action to save Jesus multiple times through the movie.
How can I help you?
Until he figuratively and literally washes his hands to absolve himself of the responsibility for what happens to him. But we'll get back to Pilate in a second, because we need to talk about probably the baddest baddie. Judas is maybe the most reviled character in all of human history. His name is a synonym for traitor, and the guy's got a whole layer of hell just for himself. And I'm aware that this movie is called Jesus Christ Superstar, but I'm gonna be a little bit bold here. Judas is the main character of this movie. The film opens on him alone singing Heaven on Their Minds, which is basically him explaining how conflicted he's feeling about somebody who he loved, Jesus, and the path that they're currently on. Also, the choice to have Judas scream singing alone on a mountaintop to demonstrate his isolation and inner conflict is just mwah. I, for one, welcome this kind of spectacle. It's dramatic and fun to talk about. Carl Anderson does a powerful portrayal of Judas as a guy who is also just struggling with his conscience and the situation that he's been put in. Heaven on Their Minds is not just a bop, even though it is one of my favorite songs. It's an existential crisis. Judas is questioning everything. Is Jesus straying from his original message, consumed by the fame and the glory from these fanatics? We see his internal struggle, the loyalty, the doubt, the fear, and the love.
Listen, Jesus, to the warning I give. Please remember that I want us to live.
It forces us to ask ourselves, was Judas a cowardly traitor? Or was he maybe a tragic hero caught in an impossible situation?
Everything is fixed, and you can't change it.
The overture of this movie and the very first scene of the movie shows the actors arriving on set and getting into character. This scene essentially casts a spell on the audience and invites them to suspend their disbelief. This is also what me and my friends do when we hang out. But the scene also becomes a metaphor for their characters and how they all become unwilling participants in this grand, tragic design, where their very actions seem preordained. Because isn't that the truth for everybody in this movie? We've got Jesus wrestling with his fate that he knows to come, Judas struggling between loyalty and betrayal. Even Pilate, in a moment of desperation, throws up his hands and calls Jesus a puppet.
Die! If you want to! You innocent puppet!
It's especially interesting that Jesus himself is fearful and doubtful and has to be shown his place in the Garden of Gethsemane. Everything is fixed, and you can't change it. This scene between Pilate and Jesus, as well as the opening transformation from the actors into their characters, have us grappling with some interesting questions about free will, the choices we make, and destiny. Now let's get back to Judas. His actions ultimately set the stage for the execution and subsequent resurrection of Jesus. But were any of his actions actually his?
I've been used. And you knew all the time. God, I'll never know why you chose me for your crime.
Judas is beside himself and ends up taking his own life. And here's where things get a little bit more interesting. At the very end of the death scene for Judas, after his last agonized scream, we hear something. There's a faint whisper, a soft choir singing, "Well done, Judas. Good old Judas." What is that? The movie leaves it up for interpretation. Is it God perhaps commending Judas for playing his part? Maybe. Judas was consumed by his own despair and claimed that for his actions, he was going to be damned for all time. And by taking his life, which is a huge no-no for his religion, that would have guaranteed his damnation. And yet, the next time we see Judas after he takes his own life is before Jesus is crucified, in the song Superstar. And in this song, we see Judas descend from above wearing all white with fabulous fringe, but also with angelic choirs and angelic backup dancers. Now, there are some versions of Jesus Christ Superstar where Judas and his backup dancers and singers are looking more devilish. Like, this is a damned Judas, definitely just back to rub salt into Jesus Christ's gaping wounds. But can I just say, I love the 1973 version of this. It's bombastic and the fringe, yes? Ugh. I honestly feel like Lil Jon during this scene, like, yeah, okay. Hype aside, Superstar adds another layer to the question of fate in this movie. Even though Judas was damned for all time, is it possible that he was perhaps forgiven and accepted into heaven? Is this scene a hallucination or the manifestation of Jesus's guilt or maybe his hope for Judas and himself in the future? While I think Judas is being pretty snarky and sassy, and one might even say bitchy, I think the questions that he's asking are reasonable and valid. And given that Jesus has seen the future and understands what's to come, these are questions that Jesus might be asking himself. There is some sharp whiplash between Superstar and the crucifixion scene. It's tense and brutal, and the music is this discordant cacophony that's rising and getting louder and louder. And all we, the audience, can do is watch an uncomfortable horror as this guy, very human guy, as he's slowly dying, being tortured to death. And then it's over. The final scene of Jesus Christ Superstar brings us back to the bus. The actors are all out of their costume. They're back in their modern clothes, well, modern clothes now. And they're ready to leave the set. They're ready to leave this tense drama behind them. Except for one person. Ted Neely, our Jesus, is gone. He's nowhere to be found. And it's actually Judas, played by Carl Anderson, who is the last person to get on the bus. He takes a long, lingering look and doesn't look away until the bus sets off. He's looking at a cross on a hill in the sunset. And the melancholic song that's playing during this last scene is titled John 1941. So what does this ending actually mean? Well, I'm actually not going to spoon feed you what I think, because I want to hear your interpretation. The beauty of Jesus Christ Superstar lies in these open-ended questions. So the next time you're looking to spice up your arguments with your Aunt Peggy at your next family gathering, or maybe you're just looking for a movie that's got groovy music and can be pretty existential and thought-provoking, maybe give Jesus Christ Superstar a spin. If you enjoyed this video, give me your thumbs. I promise I'll give them back. Well, actually, maybe I won't. Maybe this is just a stick-up. Better use them while you can to like this video. If you like how strange my call to actions at the end of these videos are becoming, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see just how unhinged they can get as we go along. My name is Kyrie, this is Flights of Fantasy, and until next time I want you to live well and dance like Carl Anderson is watching. Bye!